Good morning, good afternoon. It's time for your Archiware webinar, which this time is 5 great new features in P5 version 7.4 with a good question and answer session at the end. This is David speaking. I'm waving. I'm in London. Joseph, where are you? Are you in Munich?
I'm in Munich. Hi, David. Hi, listeners.
Good for you. So
Yeah,
Joseph is an hour ahead, so it's almost bedtime for Joseph. And it's TV time for David, but we're going to do a webinar for you.
yeah.
So, in the questions box, we need your questions. So, I'm sure as we go through this stuff, you're going to have questions about it, or even more broadly, questions about Archiware. So, type those in. Type them in while we're talking, and we'll read them out at the end, or type them in at the end, and we'll send you a recording of the webinar, and also I'll send you a copy of the slide deck that you're going to want to see. Right, so this is what we're talking about. Let me get my pointer. We've got 5 things because we like the number 5. There are actually more than 5 new things in 7.4, but we're keeping some a secret. So this version was released last Tuesday, by the way, so you can grab this version now. So we have a visual dashboard when you log in so that you can see what's going on with your P5 installation. You can see that your backups have been running, that people have been archiving. Everything is visible in one dashboard. Everybody likes a dashboard, so now we got one. We're going to talk about this new add-on module, which is a renaming of Data Mover. We're calling it Data Lifecycle Management, or DLM for short now, because we added another feature in there which falls under this heading, and then maybe in future we'll have more features into this DLM module. So if you had that module, Data Mover, already, then now you have DLM when you upgrade to 7.4, and we'll talk a bit more about how that happens. You can now, number 3, you can now archive to multiple pools. This is really big. It's as in useful. So you can now create 2 copies on LTFS if you have 2 tape drives in your library or on your desk, plus a whole load of other possibilities come into focus when you're able to archive to up to 3 pools, which is what's possible. I'm waffling, so I'll go quickly. LTO volume clones. If you know what cloning is, this will make sense. It means you can make a copy of an existing archive tape. And P5 preview clients means you can distribute the load of creating previews across multiple hosts. So let's get going. Visual dashboard. It looks like this. When logging in, you can configure this to show you whatever you want to see. So let's go to over here, and I'm going to log out just to prove that when you log in, this is what you see. So I'm logging into my P5 741, which was released over the weekend. And when I log in, I see my dashboard. So the dashboard is a bunch of configurable, what do we call them, Joseph? Widgets. That's the word.
Widgets, yeah.
Yeah, widgets. So we've got a bunch of widgets that you can resize, you can change the order, and you can turn more of them on or off. So I've got some widgets here that kind of show me my backup with a bit of a focus on backup, just to not overload it. So over on the left here, not backup, just a general thing, you can see the license usage. This is something that would have previously appeared in the previous UI, so it's also here. You can see your licenses being depleted as you add slots and so on. We've got backup statistics. So these are each day, how much data was backed up. You can choose between 1 week and 4 weeks. So you can see the weeks here with the weekends where we're saving more data. Below this, you can see when people have been restoring stuff over the days. And at the bottom, I can see general job statistics. So this is 3 weeks. This is today. How many successful jobs ran? Maybe some jobs ran with a warning. So you can see all of that stuff by hovering around. Gives you a general overview of everything. Everything's green and good, or if problems are occurring that you need to fix. These things are colored. So purple means backup, which you can see at the top. The synchronize icon is green, and the archive is orange. So you can see orange pools over here for archive, purple pools for backup. This indicates this is tape usage. So this archive 2022 pool here has 480 terabytes of labeled tapes, but only 37 terabytes are free. So this shows me I might want to go label some tapes. You can refresh these widgets via the refresh button. You can download, if it's sort of data that can be downloaded, you can grab it as a tab separated file by clicking the download button, excuse me. Here we've got our cloud and disk pool usage. So these are containers. This is a backup container. This is an archive container on Wasabi, where we have getting on for a terabyte in Wasabi, so we can see what kind of bill we might be expecting. Down here, I've got live tape performance. So this is showing me the write speeds across all tape drives that's currently happening. But and over here, we've got a backup overview. So this is showing me there's a running job. So this is like a job monitor. But it doesn't update live, so you have to press the refresh button to get that one to update. And then there are more widgets. So we've got synchronize and archive stats. So archive stats will show me archive jobs, when they ran, how much they saved. And then back to the top, I can also activate synchronize and archive overview, which is the same as this backup overview, showing you the same stats, but for that job type. If I want, I can have 4 columns. So this will rejig what you've selected. And at any time, you can move stuff about and you can change the vertical height of the widgets, or you might prefer 2 columns and so on. So this will persist with your browser session. So if on a given browser, we'll remember which widgets you had turned on and the positions of them. So you can set everything up just how you like it, and you'll see it when you log in. So some users might not need to go beyond this screen because they're just making sure everything is good, or do they need to label tapes, etc. So yeah, I think you'll agree that's a really nice addition to have. And also worth noting is that this is based on job statistics that your P5 will already have been creating. So when you upgrade to 7.4, you'll see all of these stats. You don't need to just wait a month to see a month's worth of statistics. Everything is already logged within your P5 server. This just exposes it. So there we go. That's a nice one to start with, I think. Did I miss anything, Joseph?
Awesome work. Very nice.
Okay, yeah,
Fantastic.
you did a good job there.
Yes, thank you.
Right, so let's talk about Archive DLM. So this is the acronym that we're going to get used to: Data Lifecycle Management, P5 Archive DLM. What's that? It's the evolution. So I said it's Data Mover, but because we wanted to evolve Data Mover and add more features under the DLM kind of heading, we've changed the name of the module. If you already own Data Mover, when you upgrade, you can create a new key, and then you have the DLM module. You'll need a new key to make it work with the new version, but if you're under maintenance and support, then you get that for nothing. That's for free. If your maintenance expired before now, then you won't be entitled to 7.4, so you'll just stick with Data Mover. So what does this say? It says, now with an expanded focus on intelligent policy-driven data management throughout the archive lifecycle. So as well as being able to do migration of data, so let's just give you a slide to illustrate. As well as being able to do the migration and replication, which I'll just remind you about in a sec, we can now verify your existing archive media. So that means if you've got hundreds of LTO5 tapes and you've got no plan to migrate that to a newer tape, but these tapes are now 15 years old, then you're trusting your data is going to be readable. But with this, you don't just have to trust, you can know it's readable because you can get P5 to verify it. So going back to the migration replication piece, for those that don't already use Data Mover, the Data Mover migration allows you to migrate data from, let's say, LTO5 tapes to LTO9 tapes. So it might be a tape-to-tape migration where we're reading from a tape and writing to a tape so that you can get rid of those old tapes and have many fewer tapes going forwards. You might want to do a replication. So you could do replica to the cloud. That would give you rather than migration, that would be a replication. So that would give you a second copy in a separate building, so that you have a more redundancy. You might want to go the other way. You might want to go cloud back to on-prem because you're fed up of paying for the cloud and you've got lots of storage. Or you might want to go LTO to disk if you've got lots of disk storage. So the Data Mover piece is migration or replication. So that's moving or copying from one place to another place, whether it's different tapes or different types of storage. The verification piece is there because a lot of people are not migrating older LTO tapes to newer tapes, and they need to know that their data is safe. They don't just want to wonder, like this guy, if these tapes are going to be readable, right? So this gives you a way to know. But once you know that some of your tapes aren't readable, God forbid, then maybe you need to have a think about what you would do. So maybe you would go to a second copy because you didn't entrust your data to a single tape. Maybe you don't have a second copy, but you just want to take what is readable on a tape and put it on a fresh tape before things get any worse. So DLM verification gives you information with which to make decisions going forward to protect your data. So the verification part of P5 DLM is verifying the integrity of archived data. It doesn't just have to verify against tape. We could be reading cloud data or data on disk to do this, to do a verification. You can filter based on the date that files were archived or metadata in your index. So we're not verifying a whole LTO5 tape. It's not that you say verify this tape. What you're doing is going to an index and verifying the files in that index, but you can filter that down to just verify stuff that you archived more than 10 years ago, for example. During the verification, what we're going to do is read all the blocks off the tape, recalculate checksums or hashes, and confirm that those match the ones that we stored on the day that we originally wrote the tape. So any unreadable files are going to be reported back via the verification job log, and files that you archive with versions prior to 6.0, which is going back some years, they will not have checksums stored on the tape, but we will read the blocks and verify the tape by ensuring that we could read the blocks, read the data, which means that we could have restored that data. Now, you don't want to be verifying too often, so built into the verification module is the idea that we will cycle through your data at times convenient to you. So you can see this has been set up to run at the weekend. So over the weekend, what we're going to do is go to a pool and verify everything in that pool to start off with, unless we restrict unless we add a filter to restrict what we are verifying. We'll verify everything. And then as we verify each file, we will mark that file with today's date as the last time the file was verified. So that means that if you put in 4 years here as a re-verification period, then after 4 years, we will see that those files need to be re-verified, and that will get added to the list of things that need to be verified. So 4 years, we think, is a good interval without putting too much wear on the tapes, because with archive tapes, you don't want to pass them through the drive more often than is really necessary. You don't want to wear the tapes out just checking them for wear, as it were. So 4 years might be a good balance between wearing the tapes but knowing the tapes are still readable. Okay, so as mentioned, all the previous data mover customers under maintenance get P5 Archive DLN, but those that didn't buy it yet might want to, because now it's got twice the functionality. And the price, just looking at my price list, there is a 40% discount on the price until the end of the year, and there's quite a bit of the year to go. So 2 features, data lifecycle management, and now we have a place where we can add further features around this topic of managing the life cycle of data through the decades with media like LTO. So we think that's an important place to be thinking about what we should be doing next. Okay, so moving on to our third and really interesting and useful feature, archive to 3 pools. And so here we've got 3 pools as an example. So we have an archive job. So you create your archive plan, and we have in the archive plan, you have an index. So there's one index that we're going to use to archive, but you can specify, instead of 1 pool, you can specify up to 3. So you could have 2 LTFS pools, let's say, and a cloud pool, all running off the same archive plan. And in terms of what this looks like in the UI, you can just press the plus button to add the second pool and press it again to add the third pool. And so I've added all 3 here for my screen grab, but you can see there's just 1 index. So files that you're archiving are going to get entered into one index, but the index entry is going to point to all 3 pools. So by filtering the index, you would be able to choose which pool you want to recover the files that you want to restore from. So yeah, it can be up to 3 pools, can be a mixture of different media, and you can also mix LTO generations. So you couldn't do this with cloning, which we'll talk about. So you could have an LTO9 and an LTO8 pool, and we will just write the data to both pools of tapes. So that means that you would need less LTO9 tapes and more LTO8 tapes because they're smaller. But that's fine because the archive plan will create 3 tasks, or a task for each pool being written, and each task will be independently reading the data that you're archiving and then streaming it out to that tape device or cloud bucket. So these tasks will all run at their own speed, and they will all finish at different times. And when the last one finishes, post-archive tasks like delete can happen. So all of that is catered for. If you've asked us to verify, then we will run the verification against each pool. So both of your LTFS pools will get verified if you ask us to. And this, as something that wasn't possible before, you can now do 2 copies on LTFS. So we have something called cloning. Cloning doesn't support LTFS. We'll talk a little bit about cloning, what cloning is next, because relevant to the next new feature. So you get 2 copies on LTFS, and you can even do that with one drive, because I said that if you're archiving to 2 LTFS pools, like we have configured here, we'll create 2 tasks, and both tasks will be waiting for their first tape to write to. So you put a tape in the drive, we'll write that tape, and we'll keep archiving to that pool. And when we're done, we'll ask you for a tape from the other pool, while the other task will be waiting for a tape from the other pool. So you're not limited to having a LTO drive per pool that you're writing to. We'll queue up the tasks, and then you can go sequentially through the tape pools. Okay, so that was archiving to multiple pools, which is huge. I think that's going to be really useful for a lot of people, particularly with getting 2 copies on LTFS. The next feature is sort of related. Josef, I feel like I'm not talking to you enough. Are you still there?
I'm here and I'm listening. So everything is perfect until now. So no mistakes.
I'm asking you some questions normally, so I just wanted to check that you're okay.
But you know everything, so there's no reason to ask.
I seem to this afternoon. I know everything, but it'll go wrong. I think.
Yeah, you completed.
Yeah. So the P5 archive create LTO volume clones. So in order to explain this, I think I need to explain a little bit more about cloning in case you didn't know. So cloning is a setting that you can enable on a pool for backup or archive when you're writing to LTFS tapes, but not the LTFS format, just the P5 native format. And what cloning does is it writes to 2 tapes at the same time. The tapes need to begin by being empty. They both need to be in their own tape drive, and they need to be the same LTO generation. So 2 LTO9 tapes. They're empty. We start writing them at the same time. The same blocks of data go to the 2 tapes. So the tapes are going to be identical. That means that we're going to write them every time together until they're full. So the tapes will be written and filled together. And these are then bound together as a cloned pair. Once the first time we start writing them, they're bound together as a cloned pair. They must always be written together. They're identical, and therefore a restore can use either tape. So either tape can be used for a restore. So this is cloning, and it's a really good way of getting your data written redundantly to 2 tapes. And this was the only way of doing that before the previous feature that we've just added. So what you can do in 7.4 is you can take a tape that doesn't have a clone pair, and you can create one just by highlighting the tape volume and then hit start copying, and off you go. We will use 2 drives. The tapes must be the same generation, and we will stream from one to the other, and then you'll have 2 tapes in your volume list. There'll be a cloned pair, and you can use either for restoring. So it's a way of copying a tape. You could copy a tape and send it to another P5 server to import, maybe you want to do that, but you can also do that with LTFS, with the LTFS exchange feature. So, what possible, coming back to you then, Joseph, give me some things that this would be useful for. Just to
So
put you on the spot.
everybody in the past, you have installations where the people in the past do not have the required hardware for cloning. So they are just starting with P5 Archive, and they're starting with one drive, and they didn't have the option to clone. And in the meanwhile, they get a second or a third drive, and now they think, okay, we have important data in the meanwhile on the tapes. Let us clone the important tapes at least. And for this feature is built in, so they can clone after 2 or 3 years. They think, okay, these are my important data, and they start cloning now with older tapes, and they continue with cloning with newer data. But if they have older ones that are important, they can do this with this feature. Yeah. And this is more or less the same functionality than to rebuild a clone. So in the past, if you had a clone pair and one tape from this clone pair were corrupted, you need a functionality to rebuild it from the working one. And this is the same functionality to rebuild or to make a clone. So that is the reason that there is an item in the list, regenerate or copy volume. And we know exactly which functionality we should offer for a tape. And then we are doing either generate a clone or generate to rebuild it from a working clone. So this is the functionality.
Yeah. So regenerate if you already have a clone pair, but one of those tapes is damaged or missing, and then copy to create the second tape when it didn't previously exist. And so when you select a volume, P5 knows whether that was already part of a clone pair, or whether it is not, in which case it will create the clone.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of.
But the important is to understand that the story from the multi-pool and then coming to the clone were not that that the option in P5 multi-pool is the same than cloning. In the multi-pool functionality, we are copying by data, and here we are copying by block. So these tapes are really identical. And if you're doing multi-pool cloning or copying, then you're generating independent volumes, which are not identical at block level. They are identical at data level. So they are really independent.
Yeah, because you might have an LTO5 and an LTO8 tape. So
whatever, you can.
Yeah, different storages that you're
writing to. That's a good thing,
Yeah. Okay, so this ask questions if anything is not clear here, because we have some time at the end to cover that. So next we have preview clients. Okay, so what's this? So we're thinking now in the context of people using P5 Archive, and they're generating the thumbnails on the proxies, so they have like a simple MAM interface to browse their offline data. So a lot of our customers use this ability to create these previews to make their archive index more visual. So what we can do here is in an environment where we have a P5 server and P5 clients, okay, sitting on a network, and we've got our P5 server here as a QNAP, but maybe it's not an expensive QNAP. It's one that doesn't have a huge amount of CPU resources, so it's not the best thing for rendering proxies of media files, which is ultimately using FFmpeg mostly to downsample media files. But your P5 clients over here, these might be much more powerful machines. So I might have like a Mac Studio or a powerful Linux machine, which are much better equipped in terms of CPU power to be doing the preview generation, the proxy generation and the thumbnail generation. So what you can now do is you can now, from your client list, you can say which clients should be generating the proxies. And in order to show you just how this works, let me just get rid of this notification. Then we're going to flick back to the client list in our P5 installation over here. So I have a couple of clients. If I look at this MacBook Pro in the additional options, I can say whether this is something that I want to have my proxies generated on. And it might be that the local host is not so powerful, so I'm going to switch this one off. It's already on no. So across your maybe many different clients, you can choose which ones you want to have preview generation. Maybe both of these. Okay, it could be that you have two clients that are going to be doing preview generation, or maybe just one. And one of the questions actually from the earlier webinar was, it might be that you're not just using the built-in FFmpeg, it might be that you're using your own proprietary tool to generate proxies of your media files. If that's the case, then you would create a custom preview generator, and providing the custom preview tool was available on the clients, then that would also be distributed across. If you have more than one preview generating client, then we will round robin and balance the tasks across the multiple hosts. So if the Linux machine is busy rendering a preview and the Mac is free, then the Mac will get the next one, and it will just continue like that till all of the previews have been generated. So yeah, really nice feature, something that customers have asked for in our larger environments, I would say. So yeah, really nice to have that. Means that we don't just have to swamp the low power host with too much to do. Now, the way this works in terms of, obviously, if the QNAP is archiving a file, then the clients need to be able to access that file in order to render the preview. The way it works is that the clients will use the same path that the server sees to the file in order to grab it and generate the preview and then put that preview in the index. So it's not that the files are going to be copied across to the P5 clients to generate the previews. They need to be able to access those files at the same location that in this case, QNAP is accessing them. So that would mean setting up mount points and maybe symbolic links and things to make everything the same. And obviously it works better if the storage is not directly attached to the P5 server, but on the network. Okay, so I think that was our last new feature. We wanted to just give you a little recap. So 7.3 had these 5 features in our previous webinar. So we had the parking queues to make it easier for admins to distribute jobs that are coming in from users. And we had some interesting stuff around being able to save selections when you're doing archiving and restoring. We had a load of job log stuff where you can download inventories from job logs or get inventories from volumes, and the ability to search the job history. So there was a lot of kind of ease of use features in 7.3. So if you didn't see the previous webinar, or maybe you have questions about that stuff, or just nice to remind you about it. So that's what we did there. And finally, we like to push the fact that P5 runs everywhere, or pretty much everywhere. That's our download page off of archiware.com/download P5, now that we've got version 7.4 out. So we've got, we cover every possible eventuality. We have command line and graphical installers. Linux, we're covering different distributions. We support FreeBSD, which means that we can be on TrueNAS scale and TrueNAS. We even have a plugin now for TrueNAS, don't we, Joseph? So that's something that we added.
Yeah. So we had Docker as important for me. What I like most is Docker, because with Docker we keep everything what is closed from the vendor's application side, though. So we are not maybe allowed to install native on the operating system, but with Docker we can easily integrate on all closed systems. So there is no reason to not use P5 in all the storage world. So this is really fantastic now. And all is supported. So this is some of them we run already in the past, but now we put them on the supported list. So they are officially supported from our side. We add documentation for it. And so this is a good news that everybody is able now to install these different things on all these closed platforms. And I like it.
Yeah. So you have a lot of installers to build every time you release.
Yeah, we have one guy who is building all these different installers.
Just building all the installers. Yeah. True. Docker is kind of connected to Synology, because the Synology App Store where we are listed is quite slow to update, and you can no longer sideload stuff onto the latest Synology OS. So you can install Docker, then you can put us in a Docker, and then we kind of circumvent that problem. QNAP is easier because you can still do manual installs, But you can install us in Docker on any operating system.
But you're not losing a lot of performance if you're running in Docker. So it's more or less the same performance if you look at the tape drive performance. And so we analyzed this, and I didn't expect it, but we are more or less equal fast if you run native as an application or in Docker.
Right. Yeah, and it makes updating simple.
Yeah, it makes it simple. Yeah, me too.
So as always, 5 or 30-day trials from archiware.com. So if anybody likes what they see, go grab the software, install it on one of those many platforms. I'm running it here on a Mac. And so with that, it takes us into past. And I'm really keen now that you put your questions in. So please start typing, and I'll start answering. So first question is from Mike, who asks, do I have to target some storage space when cloning with a standalone LTO drive, or does P5 handle that? Do I have to target storage when cloning? Yeah, I think the answer to the question is that if you're cloning or migrating data between two LTO devices, we don't put anything on disk. So we're streaming directly from one device to the other, just through a memory buffer, right, Joseph? So
yeah, absolutely. There is no caching, no staging area required. So everything is direct. There is nothing to take care about something where some caching area. There's nothing. Everything is going directly from one hardware to another hardware.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So that's. Does that answer your question, Mike? Did we hit the right topic with it? Hopefully we did. Okay. So there's a few more coming in here. So Roger asks, I assume that it will run on Mac OS 15 Sequoia. Didn't see it listed. Yeah, I think we've been a bit slow in putting the latest Mac OS on the download page. Is Sequoia the latest Mac OS? I always forget the names.
Yeah, this is the one. Yeah, I'm using it. Yeah, and we are running. But it's really true that we are sometimes a little bit late on all these new operating systems, and but we are running on it.
I'm running Sequoia, and it runs. It runs fine, Roger. But we need to update the page.
So we have a long list on the page.
We have a long list, but it's out of date.
But maybe this is outdated. Yeah.
Yeah. Right, our friend Matt from Vancouver. I love the dashboard widgets, and I really love export feature for the data. Yes, that's because you asked for it, Matt. So
this is a special feature for Matt.
Yeah, this is just for Matt. And one small feature request is to standardize the data units, duration, or data size, because sorting would be better with the same units. Are we talking about the units that we're listing in the job? Where are units listed where? I guess for exported data. Yeah, Matt. But yeah, we'll take that as a feature request. You can clarify in a follow-up. For example, duration. Matt's typing 2 words per question. I'm going to answer Mike's question while Matt types some more. So Mike says, okay, so 2 drives are required. Yes, you've got to have 2 drives to do any of the things that we mentioned today. We don't have the option in P5 to copy a tape to a cache on disk and then dump the cache back to a tape, do we, Joseph?
It is another question if we can do this, but this won't make any sense because we have to do so much housekeeping, and it's dropping down the speed, and it's so worse for the hardware who is related to these jobs that we.
I mean, you could migrate data to disk and then back to tape.
And then back.
Yeah. But so, Mike, it's possible. With the migration in DLM, it's possible to do that, but we're not migrating tapes, we're migrating data. So we'll migrate a bunch of stuff from the index, read that from whichever tapes it needs to be read from, put it on disk in a disk container volume like a VTL, and then put it back on tape. Could be different size tapes. So I hope that helps there. I didn't think we had enough questions. Now we've got lots. The question from Jason says, the proxy generations to the QNAP, as your example showed, can those proxies be generated to a cloud source instead so that remote users can preview as well? You can only do that if you're running P5 in the cloud, because our web interface is served up from the P5 software that's running wherever you installed it. So you could put P5 in an AWS, for example, Linux. Joseph's
No, David.
fingers wagging.
No.
Did I go wrong?
Then you need to export also the data to the internet. So
Yeah, you can't access tapes from the cloud.
but the path is from the data. So
Yeah.
if you like to generate proxies from data which is local in the company, then you have to send also the data in the cloud. And that
It was a
means
silly answer now I'm thinking about it, because you'd be better off just sharing your P5 on premise using a VPN or something so that your remote users can access the P5 server running in your office.
Are we talking about preview generation or what? So I lost you.
I think it's well, I'm thinking about accessing the previews so that people can browse those previews
So
from a
I
remote
thought
location.
it was about proxy generating in the internet.
I think it
No.
is. Jason, your question is causing much consternation. So, proxy generation to the QNAP. I think we might have to move on, and you might have to send us an email, and we'll take it offline.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're going to do. So, sorry about that. Glenn says, love the new features in 7.3 and 7.4, so that's great. Thank you, Glenn. I'm seeing some issues in loading some of the features or pages in 7.4. Are you anticipating a 7.4.1 release soon? 7.4.1 is released, actually, Glenn, so go update. You're seeing some issues loading. So maybe you're talking about some of the web pages not loading properly. So I'm not aware that that's something that was fixed between 7.4.0 and 7.4.1, but try it. But maybe send us an email and tell us specifically what the problem is. I'm just going to put the slide back up with the email addresses on it. What do you think, Joseph?
There is one thing what we fixed in 7.4.1. The first time load after a server restart could take 1, 2, or 3 seconds to load the dashboard, and this we fixed in 7.4.1. So now we are caching all the pages which are asked from the browser. We are pre-caching. Instead, we are let them load from the hard disk on the moment they are needed. So this could be somehow the issue, but this is only solving the first time load. So if these pages are one time loaded, they are quickly served from the server. So I cannot imagine that he is maybe seeing this problem, and other problems from loading pages I'm not aware of. So it is maybe really useful that he's sending some error report or some screenshots, some films to make it visible for me what kind of problems you run in. So
so go make a ticket via support.archiware.com or send one of us an email.
Send us an email. Yeah. We are
send us an email. Send Joseph an email.
Yeah. Send David an email.
Send us both an email. Kevin, he wants to know, migrating from LTO7 to LTO9, will this create previews along the way? So you archived to LTO7, but you didn't create previews. We won't create previews when you migrate because we don't see the files back on a file system where we can point FFmpeg at them and generate those previews because we're just moving the data between the tapes. So no. So if those files that you want previews of are not on disk anymore, then you can't generate proxies or previews. That they have to be on disk so we can access them. So sorry, that's straightforward.
Then we have scripts to regenerate the previews.
If you have, we can insert previews using API calls. So if you have some preview somewhere, and you know what the file name is that goes with the preview, then we can hook things up. Same with metadata. So I hope that helps, Kevin. But yeah, another one for a support ticket maybe. Yeah, so Jason, I think we answered your question because you just come back and said yes, preview generation. So yeah, I think I covered that. Sorry, I'm deleting stuff that I'm answering and then forgetting what the original questions were. So deleting those. Jason's got some follow-up. I'll read that in a sec. Glenn asks, will this webinar be available to view online? Yeah, I will put it on YouTube tomorrow and we'll email you a link and slides and everything to go with it. So yeah, Glenn, that is going to happen soon. Glenn says, Glenn says yes, some of the web pages. So that's his problem with things not loading. All of these things are now follow-ups to things that have already been asked, I think. So Matt, coming back in one sentence, his question is, for example, looking at an archive overview widget, the duration units are human readable, 1 day, 1 hour, 1 minute. But yeah, so if you're exporting stuff, Joseph, Matt wants units that he can use that are all will compare with each other so you can sort and so on. So I guess we'll take that as a feature request. Matt, you might want to
he should send
us.
an example. He should send an example as email. Yeah,
exactly. It's a good idea, Matt. So let us know in detail. He said he's going to file a support request with screenshots. Good man. I use Tailscale too, Matt. So if guys on the call, Tailscale is an amazing VPN to access all of your stuff just via IP addresses. So for multi-site, multi-city, multiple P5 archive access, look at Tailscale, whoever it was that wanted to access stuff remotely. If you're doing anything cross sites, you need to look at Tailscale. No commission is being paid to me, but I do like it. Jason says we get requests so often to do a full restore of videos because they do not know which ones they want. So having a preview of what archive videos they will need will help. Yeah, the previews really need to be generated when you do the original archive from disk, because then they're stored in our index from that point onwards. When you're migrating, it's not an opportunity for us to generate more previews. Okay. Coming to the end of the questions, coming to the end of the 45 minutes. Thanks everybody for sticking around. So Glenn's going to email me an example. This has turned into like a webinar come support forum. And Kevin is just finishing off by saying, yeah, he appreciates that we'd have to bring stuff back onto disk to get the previews. Okay, so any more questions, folks? Then send them over. Thanks for all of the love and appreciation that's coming in on the comments now. People are liking the new features and enjoying the webinar. So that's it. Elka just called us a dream team, Joseph. Can you believe it?
Yes. Thank you, Elka.
Yeah. So speaking of dreaming, it's Joseph's bedtime. and it's my tea time. So Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll send you a recording. Go get 7.4 and we'll see you in our next webinar, we hope. So bye everybody. Bye Joseph.
Thank you. Bye bye all. Bye everybody.